Good evening and welcome Ipswich. Welcome to the Candidates Forum. This evening we have two segments. The first will be a conversation with the three candidates running for three-year seats on the Select Board. With me is Michael Doherty and incumbent Linda Alexson. The third person, Willie Whitmore, was unable to be here, but he has pre-recorded his responses to questions, so we'll dovetail that in after this. So what we thought we'd do is to start with just a couple minutes for each of the candidates to give an opening statement or an introduction, and then after that we'll have a couple minutes for each to answer a few different questions, and then a couple minutes to wrap up. So welcome, and let me tell you, Michael and Linda and Willie, that I've been to the meeting room on Town Hall a number of times, and I've heard a lot of emotions come from people from the floor, anger, frustration, but not a lot of gratitude. But I want to thank you on behalf of the town for putting your hand up and saying that you'll do this. It's a difficult job. It's very time-consuming to do these elected positions. So thank you on behalf of the town. So, Michael, let's start with you. Why don't you just take a couple minutes and tell the folks who you are?
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you, Tom. And I also want to thank the folks at ICAM for putting this together. I think it's really important that the residents and people of Ipswich have an opportunity to meet the candidates in this capacity. You know, it is an important time to vote for folks that are going to make decisions for the community as a whole, and to have a chance to meet with them. It's crucial so that way they can make a well-informed decision on Election Day. As you know, I've been involved in local government for quite some time now. I'm a fourth generation, born and raised Ipswich resident. My wife Ashley and I are raising our soon-to-be 4 children in the town of Ipswich, and we have a 6, 4, 2, and 1 on the way. And they keep us very busy at home, but it's really cool, especially with my kindergartner being 6 years old, going through the same elementary school that I went to and that my mother went to, etc. So the nostalgia with that has been fantastic. I've had the honor over the past 7 years to serve on the Finance Committee, most recently as chairman. And we've been able to accomplish a lot, getting us through COVID, getting budgets passed, and making sure that we keep the operations of government moving forward. A little bit about me professionally. After graduating Ipswich High School and Suffolk University, I went into the private sector to dabble in real estate for a bit, and then had the opportunity to jump on Beacon Hill and work for State Senator Bruce Tarr. I was with his office for 7 years and was really able to get a good perspective on state government and, believe it or not, federal government, because those two do intertwine a lot, and we see the partnerships that are on Beacon Hill, and those are some partnerships that I'd like to see bring into the local community with Ipswich if elected. Recently, I just got an opportunity to work at the Essex Regional Retirement System as a retirement counselor. To be honest, I probably should have made that move a couple of kids ago, because I can now put the Boston commute behind me and be a little closer to home, which is great, especially with the kids at home. And also part-time, for the past 5 years now, I've been a reserve police officer in the town of Boxford, serving people in a different capacity, but good all nonetheless, and I do that nights and weekends. So that's a little bit about me.
All right, excellent. Linda?
Well, thank you, and thank you for hosting this. And again, as Michael said, thank you to ICAM for letting us have this opportunity. I have been on the Select Board for 6 years, and I'm seeking re-election for a third term. I've lived in Ipswich since 1986. My husband and his family all grew up here, and my son went through the school system from first grade at Winthrop through high school graduation. And Ipswich is home to my stepson Shane and his family. I have an associate's degree from North Shore Community College in paralegal studies. I went back to school after my son graduated from high school, and I have a recreational shellfishing permit, and I work full-time for a nonprofit organization.
Excellent. Okay. So we have a few pre-prepared questions that everyone has already reviewed, so there are no surprises here. And the first one is this, what is your understanding of the duties and responsibilities of the Select Board? Michael?
Sure. Well, the select board is a very important board in town because, as you know, they're the executive board of the local government. And the way I look at it is big picture and everyday picture, right? So the select board, unlike a city mayor, is not an everyday board. They meet every other week and they take up topics here and there. They're responsible for appointing a town manager who runs the day-to-day. So the select board are really responsible for the bigger picture items, for the long-term sustainability of the community, the long-term financial sustainability of the community, making sure that they set forth policy and different procedures, enforcing different bylaws, et cetera. They appoint some committee members. Actually, my appointment to the Finance Committee is a select board appointment. And they are responsible for making sure that the voices of the people are represented and that those representations are then put forth through the town manager on a day-to-day basis. So you have the town manager who's responsible for being the face of the community on a day-to-day, and then you have the select board who's responsible for moving the town forward and looking at the bigger picture of things.
And Linda, you've got 6 years experience doing this, so you already know the answers to this, but tell us what your thoughts are.
I don't want to repeat so much what Michael has said. He has a good grasp on that. But again, as the executive branch of the town government, there are many duties and responsibilities, but the ones that are top of the list for me is hiring the town manager to run the day-to-day town hall operations, in-depth review of the municipal budget for approval for town meeting. And that includes meeting with each of the departments during the course of the year to hear their accomplishments and their goals and their budget requests for the upcoming year and justifying increases and capital requests. The select board does create many town policies, and we develop short and long-term priorities and plans for the town, which should be regularly reviewed to note accomplishments and needs that may have changed and new issues that have come up that need to be addressed. And also keep the flexibility to adapt, I should say, to changing priorities as unforeseen issues and emergencies arise. The most important thing to me as a select board member is being available and responsible to residents when they have issues that come up. Mm-hmm. I want residents to know that they are listened to, that they are respected, and that their issues, no matter how small they may seem, and when I say residents, I mean businesses as well, no matter how small their issues may seem to some people, they're important, and I want them to know that they're going to be listened to, like I said, and be confident that they will get answers, and if the answers aren't what they were hoping for, at least understand the process and why things are happening the way that they are.
Okay. So let's take a brief pause and we'll splice in Mr. Whitmore's responses to this question.
So the select board has what I would consider to be a handful of responsibilities. So the first one is the select board is responsible for hiring and managing and overseeing the town manager and the director of the electric light department. So that's a fairly basic job of just overseeing and sort of supervising two different people. One of the next responsibility of the select board is serving as commissioners of the utility departments, so the water commissioners and water sewer commissioners and electric light commissioners. So in those instances, we review the budgets in detail of those groups, and we set water, sewer, and electric light rates. So that's another one of our key roles. The third thing that we do is that we review the budget really closely for the town budget, and we set the warrant. And what I mean by setting the warrant is there's all sorts of different groups, departments who bring warrant articles for town meeting, and we review those, and that includes the budget. And what we're looking for is just to make sure that things are sort of ready for town discussion, that the warrant articles make sense, and most of those articles, go to town meeting. I think the last thing that we do is just sort of, I think people view us as sort of serving as sort of leaders in the policy realm of things with the town. So I think we often try to set sort of policy goals for the town or the community. But again, all those, for the most part, and a lot of them, take shape at town meeting. So I think, does the select board have a lot of responsibilities? It does. But a lot of the decisions that we make end up going in front of the town and being endorsed by the town at that level.
And go on to the second question. Would you please describe three, and this is more personal, three of your traits, personal traits, that most qualify you to be on the select board?
So I think that my best three traits, the first one is my institutional knowledge of the community, its history, its culture, something that we obviously want to preserve. And I attribute that to my lifelong residency in town, growing up in town. And I think that that's valuable because although change is inevitable, we also have to make sure that we keep a certain aspect of town alive, and that's its history, its culture, and things that people appreciate. And I think that it's drivers that have people come here to begin with. Another attribute that I think would be valuable to the select board is my time in state service. Seeing, like I mentioned earlier, the partnerships that can be created between federal partners and state partners and local elected officials and local non-government organizations and the citizens at large. I think it's good that we foster good relationships so that way that we're on the same page when it comes to bigger issues like water supply issues and budgetary concerns and regionalizing different things to help mitigate costs when it comes to budget inflations. So I think that my time in local and state government really help out with that. And then my third attribute would be my time in service on the Finance Committee. You know, I've been through 7 budget cycles, 14 or more town meetings, and going through warrant hearings and knowing the kind of fine-tunings and inner workings of town government. I feel that the Select Board is a very important board, and although there is no prerequisite to be an elected official, I think it does add value when an individual who's running for office has experience on a different board before running for that office. And I feel that my time on the Finance Committee, especially as chairman, has granted me that. And I really look forward to hopefully being elected and taking my qualities and skills over to the Select Board. I will say that as Finance Committee chair and being responsible for running the meetings at the Finance Committee, my practices have always been to make sure that everyone's voices are heard, kind of like Linda pointed out, making sure that the residents' voices are heard, that everyone is treated with respect and has respectful decorum within the meetings, and making sure that all areas and all angles of an issue are approached, discussed, and looked upon before making a final decision. And you know, we just got to make sure that we're bringing common sense into these decision-making processes and that we're doing what's best for the town, for the people of Ipswich, for the taxpayer, and for the environment, because those are very fragile areas. And those are my 3 qualities.
Okay. Linda.
So I thought about this, and I feel that my experience, my commitment to the town, and my financial prudence and priority are the 3 traits that I'd like to focus on. As far as experience, again, I've been on the board for 6 years. I understand a lot of the processes, including the budget. I still have a lot to learn. I think we all do, no matter how long we've served on particular boards and committees. As part of my tenure on the Select Board, I'm also on other committees. Most notably, I represent Ipswich on the Veterans District Board with my counterparts from Essex, Georgetown, Raleigh, Newbury, and West Newbury. And I had the opportunity to testify at the State Joint Transportation Committee in support of the bridge dedication, the High Street Bridge for the global war on terror. So that was very exciting. It was supportive to our veterans.
You went to the State House and testified there?
No, we actually had to do it by Zoom.
By Zoom?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I've been on the Shellfish Advisory Board since long before I was on the Select Board. I think I joined that committee in 2012. And for the last several years, I've chaired it. And as part of that, I've advocated for our shellfish, our shellfishing industry. Yes.
Fisher
yes, sorry. By advocating to our state legislators for funding for the green crab trapping program. Right. Which benefits our shellfish beds as well as the Great Marsh. And as a result of that, we've brought in tens of thousands of dollars over the last several years towards that effort. So it's been very successful.
Let me ask a follow-up question to this, and you can answer this best because you've been 6 years. Does the job change with the change in the manager? Because the manager is the one that really does the business of the town, running the different departments and sort of managerial when you think of a CEO of a company. I would think, and I don't know, I would think it would change from the current manager is new, but Robin Crosby was here for a few years, had one style, before Robin, Tony was here, and before Tony, Robin. I would think it would change a little bit.
Are you talking about the,
Just the way the interaction.
I'm not quite sure how to answer that. I'm not sure I understand where
Yeah.
you're going. I was talking about the Shellfish Advisory Board and
Right.
advocating at this, for state money, but so.
Just the job as a select person generally.
Oh, okay. Well, each manager has their own style.
Yeah.
For instance, our current manager will have, I know I meet with him every couple of weeks and get updated on the inner actions at town hall. I didn't do that with former town managers. We'd speak occasionally, but not on a regular scheduled basis.
And then
So-
there was COVID too, so. that
And
changed.
right. So that's just one example
Yeah.
of different
Okay.
ways to.
So let's take a second and let ICAM splice in with Whitmore's responses to the second question.
So one of the things that I consider myself is that I consider myself as and enjoy doing is strategic planning. It's really important in the town to have an idea sort of where we are and where we want to go. When I first got elected, I talked about how our community development plan was outdated, and I worked to get funding set aside to do another one. We got that funding set aside, and I served on the community development plan committee. And the plan was enacted a couple years ago, and we're building on it now. Another thing that I did on that strategic planning front was I set a proposal in front of the tri-board, so the select board, the finance committee, and the school committee on creating a strategic planning working group. And the idea behind that group was to sort of get an idea of what are our major capital needs, what are our infrastructure needs, what are the big bills that we anticipate coming, and importantly, how much is it going to cost, and how do we pay for it, and what could it look like? And that working group was really successful and got a lot of positive feedback on their report from the tri-board. So I think that's something, those are two items that I worked on that I enjoyed, that I helped create, and I think it was helpful to have that skill set as a member of the select board. Another one is I'm a doer. I get stuff done. So it's really easy to be on the select board and just sort of ask questions. People come in front of us, they ask us our opinions, they ask us to approve things. That's the simple part, finding out what the challenges are and addressing them head on and coming up with new ideas. That's different, and I feel like I've been successful at that. There's the strategic planning working group I just mentioned. I also set up a task, sort of a working group on cycle and pedestrian safety. And that was sort of a temporary ad hoc working group that has now been made permanent. And I'm on that working committee. And I also worked closely with the former town manager and some residents on establishing the Climate Resiliency Committee. So I'm really proud about setting up new stuff and having some new ideas and making new products and groups to help to better our town. And I think the last thing is I would just say that I am what I guess I would describe myself as reasonable. I feel like I'm pretty level-headed and that I'm open-minded. And I'm not on the board advocating for any specific groups. I'm not here with any super focused causes. It's general. I just want to make Ipswich better. And I frankly am ignoring national level politics or state level politics. I don't believe that has a role here in town. And what we need to do is find reasonable solutions to our challenges. We need to think about how our challenges and our issues affect our citizens, and we need to make reasonable, sustainable decisions to move forward. So I think those are I guess three traits that fit me for the board.
And then lastly, Michael, how can Ipswich improve its tax base and still maintain its quality of life? It's a fairly broad question, but just a fee associated, if you will, on that?
Yeah, it is a broad question, but it's an important one because it is something that we always got to make sure that we keep a focus on. You know, we have two limited things in town as when it comes to resources. It's water and it's a tax base, right? We can't be doing things where we're taxing people out of their homes or preventing people from penetrating the community and being able to raise their family in the community. So I think the best way to approach that is to make sure that we are, I've been using this word a lot, but making sure that we have partnerships with our local community leaders when it comes to small businesses, when it comes to large businesses, making sure that we are communicating and having good relations with developers who come in, making sure that we're doing things where when a developer or a business comes in, that they come in a sustainability way, where if they want to expand, that it's in a way that acknowledges the fact that we have limited resources, our infrastructure has certain limitations, and that we have to do our job to make sure that the people of Ipswich continue to get the services that they expect from town government, but that we're getting the income that we need to make sure those services are being funded. And I think that we just need to make sure that we have good community outreach, solid communication and collaboration with our small business owners and our large corporations and our developers, and making sure that we do our best to, again, work with our state partners, that we get federal and state monies, that we're able to obtain grants and be able to do all those types of things that help offset the residential tax base. You know, Ipswich is lucky in the sense that we have a diverse tax base, right? We have our residential income, we have our commercial industry, our agricultural industry. You'd be surprised how many communities only survive their budgets off of a residential or an agricultural because they don't have an industrial tax base or what have you. So,
And we don't have very much of one, or a commercial one.
we don't, but compared to some communities have zero. We at least have some, and what's good is that we have the ability to grow from that, but in a sustainable way where we're not overtaxing our utilities and we're not overtaxing our infrastructure.
One of the issues that came up in the community development workshops was the notion of attracting another anchor tenant, like landlords refer to, like EBSCO, like Biolabs, something like that. And I didn't hear an answer to how you do that, but it seems to me that that would be an important thing, so that it's not overly reliant on residential taxes, because housing is critical.
Exactly.
It's a premium.
And we're lucky that we have all these different resources that make people want to come here. We have our beach, we have our forest, we have our open space, we have our unique history with all the old houses and the foundation of our country basically being point to different areas in town. We have all that stuff that we can use and tap into when it comes to attracting people here. And when businesses, large and small, see that, and when we have our own commuter station, and when we have, hopefully down the line, more housing available at an affordable rate, I think you'll start seeing some of those anchor tenants wanting to come in here and establish Ipswich as their home, or at least one of their homes.
Linda, what do you think about that? What are your thoughts on that?
So quality of life to me, we want to be able to maintain the benefits of living in a small coastal community, and that's why most of us live here. It's a beautiful town. We want to maintain that charm and character, as well as access to critical services. Our infrastructure, our water supply. Those are really important, and we also want to be able to afford to stay in our homes as we age, and that's becoming a problem.
That's become a major problem for people.
It's a major concern. I know of a few people now who have either recently moved out of town or are planning to, and that's not unique to Ipswich.
No.
It's the whole area, but that doesn't mean it's less of a concern. So we need to, as we are looking at new growth and rising taxes and fees, we have to look at residents' capacity to be able to afford this. I think one of the things that we could try to do is be creative in attracting businesses to certain locations. I think there are locations in town, perhaps the Route 1 corridor, for example, where we could grow industry and commercial uses, and we need to make that attractive, whether it's some sort of financial incentives or tax incentives. But I think that's one way that we can add to the tax base.
So let's give ICAM a few seconds to splice in Mr. Whitmore's responses, then we'll go in reverse order with sort of wrap-up comments.
That's a great question. I think there's a little bit of irony behind that question, because when you talk about how can Ipswich improve its tax base and still maintain its quality of life, I think the situation is closer to Ipswich needs to improve its tax base to maintain its quality of life. Unfortunately, we're in a situation where we're behind in some of our infrastructure needs, and when we start looking ahead, we need to start investing more in making repairs, road maintenance, water, wastewater. We know that we have a big bill coming up for our public safety building, and we know there's issues with our elementary schools, right? So if we don't expand our tax base, those bills are going to be very, very, very expensive. So I know there's an idea of sort of, a lot of people like Ipswich just the way it is, and it's great. But if we don't find a way to expand the tax base, we probably, our quality of life, our schools, our roads, our infrastructure will just, it's going to get either worse or far more expensive to maintain. So how do we do that? So how we do that is by growing smart, right? Smart growth is how we do that. And I think a lot of people may understand, but if we bring it up to the 5,000 foot level, the tax base in Ipswich is primarily residential, right? It's primarily residence and housing in tax dollars that people pay in real estate. We do have some businesses and commercial, but we need to grow that a little bit. It doesn't need to be significant. We don't need to start, creating strip malls or looking like Salem or Danvers, but we do need some more business. And there's a smart way to look into doing that downtown or some other areas, maybe out on Route 1. But we need to find a way to grow some more on the commercial side. As far as housing is concerned, I don't think that we are in like a housing crisis per se, but we need more housing. And there's a lot of reasons why we need more housing. We need more affordable housing. We have a lot of people who live in town who work in town who can't afford to live here. We have seniors who are looking to downsize and can't find a place to do it. So we need either, what is legally mandated as affordable housing, and we also need just housing that's less expensive or smaller for people who, we have a large senior base who are hopefully looking to stay. So we need to grow and expand our tax base, and we need to do it in a way that's smart and sustainable. The community development plan goes over a lot of that. We also had a really nice presentation just this past Tuesday by the Harvard Graduate School of Design, and they proposed some ways to do it too. I think a lot of smart growth in Ipswich means looking at some slightly denser development downtown. The infrastructure is there, public transportation is there. So that's one route to do that. It makes for a more walkable community. It's a smarter way of doing it. So we need to find ways to sort of intermix that, commercial development and residential and housing. A lot of what that looks like was, sort of first floor storefronts, second and third floor apartments, and it's thinking like that. But we need to be open-minded, and we need to be honest with ourselves that we do need to grow, and we need to plan for growth and do it in a way that it's sustainable.
So I'll give you both a couple minutes to sort of tell folks what you'd like to do and in summary form,
Sure.
As you see fit.
I care about Ipswich, its history and its people, and I've enjoyed contributing my time to the work of the select board and the town, and I'd be honored to continue representing our residents for another term. Thank you.
So in conclusion, I want to say thank you to ICAM. Thank you to those of you who are watching. I appreciate people who are trying to learn and understand how the select board works and who the candidates are. I just want to say that I love living in Ipswich. My family and I have lived here for 10 years. We've made it our home. My mom has moved to Ipswich and lives in town. And so I can appreciate all sorts of different views of Ipswich. I can understand seniors and those on fixed incomes and retirees. My children are in the school system, so I can relate to school parents and the challenges that we have. And I understand that a lot of families are struggling and that it's hard right now. Ipswich is, affordability in Ipswich is a challenge. We are doing a lot of good things in Ipswich and a lot of things that the board is doing I'm proud of. We're doing a nice job conserving open space. The schools are in a good status, in a good situation. And we're investing in infrastructure in a way that's really important. But I want to be honest with everybody. There's still a lot more to do. It's probably dumb as someone who's running for office to say that it's going to get more expensive to live in Ipswich. It's probably easier to be a candidate to say that we need to be fiscally conservative and we need to start saying no to things. But the problem is that we can't afford to do that. We underinvested in our community for decades and we're now playing catch up. And if we wait and if we stop spending money and if we stop making these important repairs and investments, it's just going to cost us a lot more money in the future. So we need to work hard. We need to think smart about how we do this. We need, the investments that we make need to be measured. They need to be moderate, but we need to keep moving forward. And that's one of the reasons why I'm running, is just I'm happy with what the board has done over the past 5 years, and I recognize that we need to keep moving forward. And it's not easy, but I'm ready to do the hard work. And I hope that people who are and who recognize that we have to keep going and that it may not be easy, but it's going to be worth it, I hope those people vote for me on May 16th.
Thank you. Michael?
Excellent, thank you. People have asked me over the years why in my early 20s I decided to join committees and run for office, et cetera, and continue that into my 30s. And my answer has always been the same, and that is, I believe that as a society we have an obligation to, in some way, shape, or form, give back to the community that we were either raised in or that we're raising a family. And this is my way of giving back to that community. I have a very deep passion for Ipswich, its people, its culture, its history. I've been here my entire life. My family roots go back deep. I plan on continuing to be here as I grow and get older. And I want to make sure that Ipswich remains a special place for our future generations and children as it has for past generations. And I feel that I have the right qualities from my experiences on local boards and state office that I can translate over to the select board to continue to keep Ipswich on the right path of moving forward, to growing Ipswich, making sure that Ipswich continues to be that unique, charmful place that we know and love, but at the same time doesn't become unaffordable to our seniors and younger folks that want to try to penetrate the market. So with that, I will say this. Regardless of the results on May 16th, I will still be here serving in some capacity for the town and the people of Ipswich, but I hope to garner their vote on May 16th.
Well, if you don't make it, I know the Government Study Committee is looking for someone.
Thank you. I was thinking more FinCom, but thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you, ICAM, and thank you, Ipswich.